All right. So here we have another series of 30 minutes of real piano practice. Um, I just recently completed writing this arrangement of Isn't She Lovely? This is not going to be in the full title. It's not going to have that experimentation there. Um, but yes, it's an arrangement of Isn't She Lovely? Beginning part, it's basically just 32 measures. There's kind of like a simpler part that's just like the accompaniment, and then there's a part with like a crazier bass line, and then the actual melody with chords in the right hand. Um, and so yeah, the first part is like easy enough that I can basically sight read it, and it's also kind of like a semi arrangement that I've had for years and years, probably like 4.5 years, 5.5 years actually. Um, but it's just the like second half that's kind of new. So I'm going to be practicing the second half, doing some metronome work. Um, it's kind of fun because there's like little grace notes, like kind of, it's in 12/8, and so the main subdivision is the eighth note. Um, but there are some little grace notes that are really like 16th notes if you actually wanted to completely subdivide it out. So I'll be working on some of those. It's nice to get like kind of some patterns of how it feels to play a grace note somehow, and then play like a triplet kind of 3/8 notes kind of a figure. So we'll be doing some of that. Um, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the metronome to about let's say 220. That seems like a good random kind of area. That's about where I want to start. And um, what we're going to do is I'm going to start kind of right at the second half. Yeah, we'll just roll. We'll just roll and see where we get to. This is in 4/4. I don't want that. I want 3/4. So it's kind of emulating 3/8 notes in a row. Da, 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 da. Like that kind of vibe. Cool. Okay, so right there. So now I'm trying to think. There's like 2/16 notes there. I'm trying to think where they are. I think they're on the third eighth note partial of the beat. The beat, if we're calling the beat like a dotted quarter note. Let's see if I'm right. No, they're on the second partial. So here's what I'm going to do. do a little slower actually. Really feel that subdivision. This is 170. There we go. So this is tricky because I think the reason this is feeling so weird is because, so right here,
Oh boy, oh boy.
right here, um, I get like basically a downbeat. I have this little grace note here. These are all tied. And then I don't have anything until the second partial of beat 2, the second eighth note partial of beat 2. And there, it's 16th notes going into this offbeat thing. So it's hard for a couple reasons. First, these 16th notes are a little hard to feel just because they're such a quick subdivision. Secondly, you have the offbeat, which is a little bit hard to feel. And then thirdly, you have all this time between beat 1 and this happening, and you don't even get the downbeat on beat 2. So it's a little tricky to feel that. So you have to really feel where beat 2 is. So that's kind of the challenge that I'm facing here. I'm going to slow it down even more and see if I can really feel where everything is happening from memory. So I'm going to go down to 150 to the 8th note. So I'm thinking right after I feel that beat 2, I've got to immediately do the thing. Okay, let's raise the metronome a little bit. It feels quite comfortable there. So this is 160 to the 8th note. So this is interesting to me. It's really amazing how easy it is to practice something and get it sloppy and think like, oh yeah, I got it. Because that's how I felt about this. I was like, oh yeah, this is fine. I'm going to work on the next couple measures after this. But after you look closely, you're like, oh, I don't really have this. So that's sometimes how it is. Okay, so what I was just doing there when I did went is, so I noticed I keep accidentally doing this like minor 10th kind of shape instead of going up to the D sharp here, which is what I'm supposed to do, according to the arrangement, the holy arrangement. And this G happens before this D sharp. So I'm associating those two so that when I play the G, I immediately think the D sharp. So I'm thinking the G is the third of like an E flat major chord, and then the D sharp is enharmonic to E flat. So I'm using the G to remind me of the D sharp, since the D sharp happens a beat or two, a couple eighth notes maybe afterwards, and that can help me be thinking ahead and not be just like reacting in the moment. Keep on. Okay, so I just have to remember that. So what I'm using to think of the G sharp, or the G natural, rather, is I'm thinking that starts right after beat 2. So I gotta make that chain of beat 2, the G natural, the D sharp. Beat 2, G natural, D sharp. So now what I'm trying to do is associate beat 2 with the D sharp. So hitting beat 2, and that leads me to the G natural, and that leads me to the D sharp. So beat 2, and then the D sharp is soon afterwards. So now I'm like building this chain up of this association between each other. So this makes me think of this makes me think of this, and this helps me bridge kind of problem spots so that one thing is reminding me of the next. I'm always thinking ahead, at least a little bitty bit. what I could do also, to make this even a little easier, is to set up my thumb over the D sharp ahead of time and be feeling it with my fingertip. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, what's a good time to do that? It's got to happen a little bit before, but where? I want to be specific about this. So let's see. So in that time, I have that kind of, have a second to, right there, where I play the C sharp, and I play this chord and a grace note into there, and then I have all this time to do that. So right here, from this C sharp, I'm going to be thinking up my 5th and my 9th in this whole quarter note, or dotted quarter note right here. I'm going to be thinking of it there, and then I'm going to be, if within that dotted quarter note, I'm going to reach up, and I'm going to touch the G sharp with my second finger in my left hand, the D sharp in my thumb in the left hand. So I'm being very, very, very specific about when my hands are going where, and when I'm setting up stuff. So I'm not just thinking when the thing needs to happen, then I move my hand there. I'm thinking, when do I set my hand up there so that it's already there when I need to play it? That's how I'm trying to think about it. So So what I'm thinking is, so set up my left hand for this shape, set up my left hand for the shape, leading into that measure. So then playing with the right hand, playing with the right hand. So yeah, anyways, all that. That I feel super comfortable with, so I don't need to like figure that out because I've already done that. So really, not just am I coordinating my hands, but I'm coordinating my thoughts and my attention, and I'm making choreography for where my eyes are looking at certain times, because your eyes indicate where your attention is. So if I can make my eyes go certain places at certain spots to set me up to be thinking about things before they actually happen, then I can do that. And then I know that I'm focusing on that and I'm thinking about that. So like the eyes and where I'm looking, where my focus is, that's like, I know if I'm looking somewhere, I'm thinking it. So I might not, it's hard to kind of keep track of what you're thinking at a given time, but it's a little bit easier to notice where your eyes are looking. So that's kind of why I'm thinking about the eye movements and carefully mapping those out, where they should happen and when they should happen. So this happens. Then I do second finger on the G sharp, thumb on the D sharp. I'm just touching them, not playing them. Then I'm thinking about the G sharp, then I'm thinking about the G in my right hand, then I'm thinking about the G sharp in my left hand again. Okay, let's go up a few clicks, see what happens. Let's go up a lot of clicks. It's so much easier now. Let's go up a lot more clicks. This is 220 to the 8th note. And I'm going to start a little bit earlier. Let me think, where do I want to start? Okay, yeah. Yeah, feels good. $240 to the 8th note. Cool, so now that I've mapped out the thoughts and mapped out the eye movements, it's so much easier because I have a plan, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know where to set my fingers and my hands, that it just happens, and that's very nice. Let's go up a few more clicks. So now 260 to the 8th note. $280 to the 8th note. $300 to the 8th note. $320 to the 8th note. That was a little messier. Let's go back down to 310. Okay, let's go to 340. I'll do a couple more reps there. What I'm going to do is go up to 360, but move the metronome down so that it's no longer subdividing the eighth note, but subdividing the dotted quarter. So 360 divided by 3, it's 120. Let's do 120 BPM, and I'm going to take off this so that it's just in 1, so nothing is accented. Yeah, that feels great. And then I'm going to bump this up to 125, and this is gold tempo. It's a little stressful to my hands, so maybe let's bump it down to 115. Just chill here, do a couple reps here. What happens when you actually figure stuff out like this is you get to where you can play it slowly a bunch of times in a row. That's actually what this is helpful for. It's not so much that when you get it up to tempo, you're using all these like eye tricks and where is everything happening. You're not really. I don't think that you're really using that as much. Maybe you are, but I don't think that I'm like consciously thinking about that. What I think is happening is at the slower tempo, I'm using like the eye tricks and the planning ahead and the using associations to remember and set myself up for success. Using those things at the slow tempo so that I can play it consistently at the slow tempo. And then once I can do that, then after I played a bunch of reps at the slow tempo, then I can hear what it is supposed to sound like. And I can hear a bunch of reps in a row of what it's supposed to sound like. And I can get that kind of earworm in my head. And at that point, as I'm slowly increasing the tempo, I can hear what it sounds like at different tempos, and I can get that earworm stuck in my head at different tempos. And through that process, I can kind of project at the final tempo what is it supposed to sound like, and I can predict what it'll sound like. And once you have like the basic idea of what things feel like, and a really clear idea through repetition of what they sound like, you don't have to consciously think anymore. You can, especially if you've played a lot of piano before and you know, I think the more piano you've played, if you hear something and you audiate it really clearly, then your hands don't have to work as hard to figure out what it is. There's kind of like an ear-hand connection that you develop over time from playing piano. And so I think that's kind of what happens. After you hear this little earworm, this little 1.5 second chunk, 20, 30 times, you hear it over and over and over again, then your ear starts to audiate it. And then from the ear-hand connection, you start to just kind of figure it out. And it also helps that you've gotten the physical reps and the muscle memory there. Um, so that can be kind of helpful. And it's also helpful, so right now I'm just learning this tiny chunk because I'm just kind of starting on the piece. As I get further in the piece and I've done a bunch of tiny chunks this way, and I start to string them together, and I start to try to get reps that are um, reps of longer chunks, and I want to do those perfectly, you start to kind of forget the little like mapping things and the looking ahead, um, because you don't need it as much. You're relying on your ears and your muscle memory. Um, but sometimes it's useful to go back as you're trying to string together the longer chunks to find those little reminder spots, because sometimes there's just one spot and it keeps tripping you over and over again. You could do it before when you're doing just the small chunk, but when you try to string it all together, that part messes you up again. So it's helpful to go back and figure out, just for that one little spot, what's a reminder, a little thing that I can use, a spot that I can look, a spot that I can feel with a part of my hand, um, a transition, like I know my hand is here, how does it get from here to here? What is the interval between where I know I can comfortably get without messing up to where I need to be a couple beats later? What is the interval between those two notes? And I could look at it, I could see what it feels like. You can use these things to, um, when you're getting the piece all together, to make it much easier to really get it nails and, and get that perfect take. And get that perfect take consistent over and over and over again. So yeah, anywho, this has been a long video, 40 minutes, a lot of talking, um, but I hope that it's helpful. I'm excited for this arrangement. We're just starting out with it, um, but I'm proud of it. I think it should be a lot of fun. It's pretty short. It's just like 2 choruses through the tune, but there's some fun left-hand stuff, there's some fun right-hand stuff, and there's fun kind of counterpoint stuff, so it should be, I'm excited for when it's done. Um, and the process of getting it together. So, yeah, anywho, this is kind of the second part of the series of 30 minutes of real piano practice, um, with my arrangement of Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder. So, that's the first episode. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you for watching.